Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Terra Explorer for Desktop version 7.3 release webinar. And we will get started by going over the list of new features, improvements, all of the capabilities that have been added to the software, and then we will go over some live demos inside Terra Explorer desktop as well. So just a quick overview for any of the attendees that are not 100% familiar with Terra Explorer for desktop. It has 3 levels: the Terra Explorer Viewer, the Terra Explorer Plus, and the Terra Explorer Pro. The main capabilities, the viewer has some basic capabilities, navigation. It can open up any projects that was created by Terra Explorer Pro or Plus and published through Pro. There are some limitations in terms of editing properties or layers and things of that nature, but it mostly has everything that was prepared in the Pro project. The Terra Explorer Plus has all of the capabilities, all of the analytics, all of the layer properties and different symbologies. The only thing it doesn't have is the ability to publish online and offline kits, which is the Terra Explorer Pro capability. So one of the things that we've added and is now accessible through our website is our support page and our knowledge base center, which has access to all of the Skyline products, different articles, tutorials. It also has access to online versions of the user guide. So everything is searchable and can also help guide you to our YouTube page for additional videos and tutorials. So we recommend people to go over there for any initial questions they have, and they can always contact us for anything that's unanswered there. So the list of features, and we'll go over them, and then we will also demonstrate them in the tool. The list of features, we've improved the limitation on high resolution imagery. So right now, the limitation is around 0.5 millimeter for imagery and elevation data. The limitation used to be around 7 centimeters, and now we dropped it down. I think 0.5 millimeter is more than sufficient for any sort of geospatial operation. We've added true 2D orthographic navigation mode, rendering mode. So instead of viewing things from the top with a perspective, it's actually everything is perfectly in 2D view. We've added additional 3D mesh formats, so we support the newer versions of formats such as SLPK, and we've also added the ability to export to other formats such as 3MX and the updated cesium versions. We've improved CAD support for DWG and CAD layers, GDAL version 3, and support for Mongo database, so document database can also be included. The volume classification will go over the ability to colorize the mesh from GIS layers or polygons. Improvements in drawing tools, so better digitizing capabilities, measurements, and drawings on surfaces that you can create to draw on. We can align to model so that if you have layers that don't have Z component, they're only 2D layers, you can align them to the 3D model and add a Z component to them by draping them on top of the mesh. We've added the photo inspector tool that allows you to visualize the images that were used to create the model. A clip box, which we'll go over, will allow you to see only a portion, a clipped out portion of the 3D mesh and focus on it. We've improved the presentation movie creator in terms of the codec for compression, so it's a lot more friendly now and produces smaller files more seamlessly. We've improved navigation. We've added a zoom to cursor option instead of just zoom to center. There's show through options. So on top of the underground capabilities where you can see things underground, now you can also set certain objects to be able to see through the mesh to show them through the mesh at a certain distance. There's line texturing, so we can texture lines using animation. And we've added light effects and blend modes for the labels and ambient light and other improvements in the way that meshes or other imagery data get displayed. We've added a couple of different levels of being able to brighten the data or add saturation on the fly. The manual retouch tool, which is a photo mesh component that's available in Terra Explorer, and improved interface to the Skyline Globe server and T for web, as well as other improvements in the API, and of course, bug fixes, stability improvements, and additional support for formats and new formats. So to go over the first one, the high resolution imagery and elevation layers. So as we said, the limitation used to be 7 centimeters. Now it's closer to 0.5 millimeter. And the 2D true orthographic rendering moment. So perspective view means that you're viewing the buildings from a certain point. That means that you're seeing it as if a bird's eye view. The 2D mode means that everything is orthogonally rectified, and we'll go over that real quick. So let's jump to the first option. So just to go over real quick, you see this is the 3D mesh. And if we add a sphere over here on the 3D mesh, here we go. So this is to explain the orthogonal view. So you see the sphere itself is floating in the air. And as we move, let's say, to the top of this building or to the top of this building, we can see the perspective view. Let me increase the screen a little bit. Now, what happens when we go into 2D mode? You'll see that now everything is perfectly orthogonal. So it's no longer looking at its 3D perspective. It's looking at everything as if it's perfectly facing up. Now, the other thing that we see is you see the sphere is now located at its exact XY position, whereas when we move into the 3D mode, we see the sphere is being projected over here. Now, if it was in the center of the screen, it would be projected the same in the 2D and in the 3D mode. Okay, so that's one of the options. In terms of resolution on the ortho, so you can see the ortho data for Frederick. And in the ortho for it, we're also able to then utilize a much higher resolution level where it doesn't have to downsample it in order to be viewed. Okay, let's jump back into the option text label. So the blending for the text label. And another thing is you see when you have something moving in the air, its perspective changes as it moves over. So with the 2D mode, you can see it moving exactly where it is on the ground. And even if you zoom underneath the airplane, it's still being shown on top of the 2D. So see, when we're in the 3D mode, the airplane might be above us. And same thing for the text label. Okay, so hope this covers this portion of it. We'll go over the next slide. So the new supported formats for 3D mesh, we've added SLPK, and the SLPK option is now in version 1.7. So the most recent SLPK, and you can import a 3DML and export it to the SLPK version. We've added 3MX, so you can also export to 3MX options. And Yeah, sorry, I seem to have lost internet connection temporarily. Let me jump back. There we go. Yeah, apologies for that. I lost my Wi-Fi connectivity temporarily. Okay, let's continue. So we're showing the building classification. Let me just refresh these layers. Here we go. Okay. So we're looking at the full 3D mesh. And when we look at the building layers for the classification options, right now we have the classification mode set to no. And you can see some of the building footprints appear. If we set it to the colorize option, okay, and second, refresh these layers as well. Here we go. Okay, so this building has the classified by floor, which means that when we highlight the floor, it first of all shows us which floor it is as the tool tab, and we can also select the floor itself, get the attribution for it. So the way that this works, if we look at how this is assigned, is it's every floor has the absolute altitude elevation, so the layers have their z value, and we extrude it up 3 meters, so about the distance to the next floor. The 2D buffer around it then allows it to, you can see what it looks like, have a little bit of extra room around the actual feature itself, and then the building itself gets colorized. The same thing could be done for individual windows. There we go. And on a full city scale, we can add the GIS layer and then have the buildings classified. We can also select them, we can query them. So this is all available on Go. Inside the GIS capabilities, the feature layer capabilities of the tool. So we'll move on to the next option, which is CAD drawing. So improved CAD support for DWG, DXF, and other flavors of them, which can include both points, polylines, polygons, text labels. So pretty sophisticated layers. The other couple of things we'll show you how you can activate the GDAL3 engine, so better 3D coordinate system conversions, and the support for Mongo database. Jump into this. Here we go. So we can see over here we have a DWG file that's being imported in, and it has the different tabs for polyline, for point, for text, for polygons, and all the different layers are integrated together, and they can have their own visualization attributes based on the internal data that they contain. So, and if it's pre-configured, it will import as is. So we can see over here, we have road markings, we have contour lines. So the full CAD capability, CAD drawing on top of the 3D mesh. And to go over the GDAL version 3, When you open up the Terra Explorer options, you can do that using F9, or you can go over here and open the Terra Explorer options. You can check this on. By default, we still use version 2 when it opens up. If you want to use GDAL version 3, you can check this on and use it if you have confidence that your layers are utilizing that projection system. So onto the drawing tools. Good. So in the drawing tools, one of the things that we've now added is there's snapping tool. So when you want to edit or snap or draw anything, you're able to do it with the snapping capability. So you see over here, I have the magnet turned on. I can also have snap based on snapping options. So we'll open up the snapping options. They opened up on this screen. There we go. So there's node snapping to nodes in objects or other features, other layers, other polygons, to a line segment. So if I do a line segment over here, let me move this aside a little bit. I can snap, you see, along the line, or I can snap to a segment over here, and then I can connect it to a segment over here. The other advanced snapping options, so you can snap based on directional snapping. So I could set it to be exactly 90 degrees. So let's say if I snap over here, my 90-degree option is here, or the top or here. So I can verify that I'm snapping to an exact 90-degree angle. It could also be done based on 3D snapping to a node. So here we go. Now I'm also using the 90-degree snapping or snapping to a node. So this allows you to then digitize things a lot more accurately on the 3D mesh, or with exact angle, like 90-degree angle or 45-degree angle. The other thing is you can also lock in the Z, see, and then you can only draw up or down. Let me turn off the node snapping. Okay, 3D snapping. Here we go. Or if you move it back to the XY, now you can go back to only moving it in the XY value. So these are some of the drawing options and the snapping options. One other quick thing to look is that we've added a full support also for properties. But if you draw something and let's say you're unhappy with that result, you have Control Z and Control Y. So the undo, redo options are now fully added into the tool. Okay. So one of the things to consider when you're snapping, if you make a mistake, you can always use Control Z or Control Y. On the copy paste, we've added improvements in the copy paste. So when you copy and something, and if you want to paste it, you can. There we go. Let's copy. Now, there's pasting options that you could then move it, or you can also snap to it. The other option is paste in original place, so you can paste it back to where it was. Or there's this option has existed, but you can paste special and then paste it as an object or as a layer and redefine it before it gets added in. And the drawing surface option, let's put a drawing surface. So if I want to, let's say, draw on the surface, but I don't want to necessarily snap to the mesh directly, but I do want it to be aligned to the surface, I can create a drawing surface here. And then you see when I go to draw, it dynamically moves to where it needs to be. It extends the surface in the direction. So if I want to, let's say, digitize this in an exact plane, I can just go and draw it on the surface. Then I don't have to snap to a mesh, and I have a polygon. So that's one of the options, and we can snap to it. Oh, sorry, you're in the XY. Okay. You can also have a automatically horizontal surface or a vertical surface. You want to draw on the side of a building. This is snapping vertically. Hold on. Turn this off. Okay. 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 So next overview. What is this? The other nice thing about the align to model option is if you have a layer, and let's say that layer gets moved, so I can copy and then, okay, and then select this one. Second, there we go. Paste the cursor location. Okay. So now if I move this over here, let's say, and pop it up a little bit. Okay. So now you see it's floating on the terrain, or it's not in the exact location. This is the option to align to the ground, and then it aligns it to the terrain of the data. Oh. And we'll jump to the photo inspector. Second. There we go. So the photo inspector tool allows you to visualize the image locations and the original images. So when you run data through PhotoMesh, you can load the arrow triangulation results and display the photos, as well as see how they align with the 3D model. So we'll look at this location. Here we go. So we can load the photo inspector tool, select the AT layer that we have, which is this one that's produced through PhotoMesh. And here are all the images for the project. We can change the symbol size, make it a little bit more manageable. There we go. And one of the things that we can then see is, first of all, we can click on any one of the images and then view the original image. We can also click on a point, let's say over here, and load all the images that appear in this point. Let's filter by direction. So let's filter by 90 degrees. So anything that's directly in front of it. And we can see over here the list of images that we have. Okay. Oh, here we go. And then this allows us to, let's say, look at what we're seeing over here in the 3D mesh and the original image. So one of the options here. Okay. And to the clip box. And we'll go over some of the improved close range navigation and other navigation options. So the clip box allows you to crop out everything from the 3D mesh and only view a box of it, a certain section of it, and it can be edited or moved around or adjusted. So you can clip also outside or inside. The presentation movie creator mechanism, and the improved close range navigation, the zoom to cursor. So we'll go over that as well. So let's jump into the clip box location. Now you can create a box, a 3D box using objects, 3D shapes. So this is the box, and you can create it anywhere. Let's quickly show the option to, let's say, add another one. So I can draw, I have this block over here, but I can, let's say, isolate this building over here. Let me turn up the drawing surface. That's what's going on. There we go. And it's always editable. Afterwards, you can rotate it, you can change it. Once you have the 3D box established, you can then use it in order to select the box, let's say this one, and then in the analysis tools in the cross section, which is the familiar tool for doing cross section through 3D, you can then highlight the clip box in the project tree, and then when you open the clip box tool, you can see the clipped out version. Now it might be not perfectly aligned, so you can always increase the height a little bit or lower the depth a little bit. Move it a little bit up or down until you get to a good representation of a single building. And if you want to view a different clip box, we can jump to the other clip box. This one. And then highlight this box and click here. Then we can view the building by itself. We can also do clip outside or clip inside. So you could clip this building out and place something else instead using the clip option. Now the other option that I wanted to show you, the navigation options. So you see the zoom to cursor allows you to then zoom to cursor. The default used to be zoom to center, used to be the only option. And this option means that wherever the cursor is, or wherever the center of the screen is, that's where it zooms. So even if my cursor is over here and I scroll, you see it's zooming over here to the center side, no matter where my cursor is. Now, when we change the option to the zoom to cursor, see if I'm over here and I it's zooming in on this section. And same thing for zooming out. So if I view something and it's at the corner of the screen, I don't have to move the center sign and then zoom. I can just place the cursor on there and zoom to it. And same thing for if you want to zoom out in a certain direction. Okay, so that's the zoom options. In the presentation, wanted to show that the create movie option now has a built-in compressor for MP4. So you don't need to worry about the different codecs or having different libraries. It's now built into the video creator. Okay. One of the things that the zoom to cursor is used for, and this is a nice demonstration of it, is let's say the cursor is over here and you want to zoom on the building or on the section, it still zooms in. As opposed to zooming to where so you don't have to have the center sign hit the object exactly. And it also knows, even if you're missing a little bit, let's say if I'm zooming over here, even though I'm seeing through it, it still detects that there's an object here and it zooms nice and slow, as opposed to over here, see when there's zooming to the background. So that makes it very nice to zoom in, to view things, pan around without having to worry too much about, all of a sudden losing the object that you're looking at or zooming too fast in or out. So that's the navigation, improved navigation option. For the show through, let's show this. So we have, here we go. We have a sphere here, and you can see the sphere is visible, like a 3D mesh. It's slightly underground. If we go to the options, so max show through, you see, we could set the distance so that when you're within 300 meters, it'll show through the mesh, even though it's underground or behind the building. When you zoom out behind 300 meters, it disappears. Now, this is also nice for underground polygons. So right now, I can't see the underground data that's in here. If I turn on underground mode, I can, but then it makes it a little bit more difficult to see where it is relative to the mesh, and you don't see the mesh as well. So with the show through option, here we go. Set to 300 meters, I zoom in, and then I can see the underground features and where they are relative to the data. Same thing with any sort of vector lines that are behind the data. If I set them to show through, I'll be able to see them through the mesh from the defined distance. Okay, line textures and animation. So this is a more sophisticated line that can have texturing in it instead of just a vector or just a color. The other options for animations in vector lines is when you have data moving, you can see you can add animation to the textures for things such as pipe, traffic. It could show directionality or speed. So these are the different new animation options for the texturing in the animation. Okay. A lot of these are available in our data library. So, and some of the other things that we'll go over in terms of like animation map, those are larger scale things, but you could have moving arrows or moving cloud icons or arrows with different colors moving through the data. Let's minimize this. Okay. And on to next slide. So we saw the show through options and the line texturing options. And texture animation. Now we'll go and review the label blend mode and light effects. So, let me turn these off. For light effects, we could see you can add now light effects that could be attached to an object or static. Now, it might not be as impressive, but one of the nice things that you can see is if you change, make it dark, so it basically recreates nighttime, you can see how the light effect influences the mesh or moves along, really creates the sense that the objects around the light have more visibility. So that's one of the light options effect. These are available in the built-in data library for Skyline. So we've added a lights tab, and you can add different lights. You see like over here, red lights, that could be applied to the brake lights of the car. So those are the different animation options for lights. And then these are what the labels, the blend labels for the light looks like. Okay. Some of the additional display effects, let me return it to daytime. So when you have a point cloud or a 3D mesh that isn't colorized, and this is an example of an uncolorized point cloud, one of the additional display options is the depth perception. So you see when I click on the depth perception, it now provides a certain outline around objects based on where they are relative to the viewer, so that it's much easier to see details in the bridge itself, as opposed to when we're looking at it just as a color base. And just to give you an idea of the difference, this is what it looks like without it, and this is what it looks like with it. So pretty big difference in terms of, and this is useful for all kinds of applications, but this is one of the main ones for either viewing point clouds or uncolorized meshes. The other options that we've added in terms of viewing capability, so you see there's now more post-colorization effect. And I'll zoom out a little bit so that we have a good sense to what we're looking at. So let's say we're looking at here, it has some green, some red, different colors. And when we change, let's say, the brightness, we can brighten up the whole thing or darken it. Same thing with saturation. You can see it on the fly. Contrast, and just general gamma brightness. So all of these are available in, and this is our default. That's more or less what we recommend. You might want to push the saturation a little bit up or down based on the source data. Yeah, this gives you more control over the post effect that the color has, or the 3D visual aspect has inside Terra Explorer. So make it easier to view or digitize or simulate, create a more realistic view. I have some questions. Does zoom to cursor work in underground mode? Yes, it works in any mode. You know, if you have the zoom to cursor, it really doesn't matter if you're viewing something underground. See, if I zoom over here, it'll zoom to this part of the mesh. If I zoom over here, it'll zoom to this part of the mesh. So we're over here at the top. So it works regardless of the mode that you're in, or how you're visualizing it. It's just basically aligns the cursor with the source of where the zoom is happening to. So that's really how the zoom to cursor works. So we'll go back to the remaining slides. So we reviewed the ambient light options and the display effects, both the depth perception and the different saturation and brightness options. The manual retouch tool, we won't go too deep into that. This is a photo mesh extension, and what it allows you to do, see, let's say if there's something that you want to fix, you could bring in the retouch tool and then open the manual retouch tool inside photo mesh. So you can create your own user, by the way. So if you have multiple people working on the same mesh, they can log in their user and then they save the SQLite file and you can import it back into PhotoMesh, and in the table you'll see which user did which fixes and which areas they worked on. So real quickly, the manual tool allows you to digitize areas and highlight them for cleanup. Be either a flat polygon, or it doesn't have to be a horizontal surface, but it'll snap to whatever surface. And by the way, this also has a lot of the snapping tools that we saw, so they're also available inside the editing for the manual retouch. And you can remove floating components, or you can flatten building profiles if you want to clean a profile. And this is where the snapping tool might help. But let's say in this case, I'll snap from here to here, digitize the roof. When I'm done, I right-click. And then if I'm happy, I can edit the polyline or move it or shift it, but we can close this and then click on the ground, and then it produces a vertical polygon. So that's the manual retouch tool inside Terra Explorer. So we reviewed all of the new features and capabilities. Some of the enhancements in the Skyline globe integration and Terra Explorer to web, so you have more control into the layer permissions and access tokens that you publish the data with. So it lends itself well to more secure projects. And API improvements, so a lot of the new things that you saw, such as the drawing API, includes some of the new capabilities, as well as the volume classification. So the way that we're colorizing the 3D mesh, also available in the API. Some of the other thing, we've added a pixel to world or pixel to object functionality, which means you can query an area and then get the real world coordinates in a specific pixel in the 3D window. So could be utilized for VR integration, things of that nature. And we will address questions that I've gotten. I apologize for the small hiccup in the beginning, the unexpected Wi-Fi downage, but eventually it came back. Onto the questions of, can you merge more than 10 3DML files in one single file, or more than one 3DML file? Not necessarily merge them together. You could bring them into Terra Explorer and modify them or have them display well together. We do have work that's going on in creating our what we call the open 3DML object, which will allow you to have multiple 3DMLs with sort of a root on top, but that is still going to be separate files. At the end of the day, if the 3DML is getting very big, it's not really necessary to combine them. You could have 50 3DMLs in a project. As long as they align well along the edges, there shouldn't be any visualization options with Terra Explorer. There's a question, can I access data from MS SQL database directly in TEP? I need to confirm that. I believe so. We do work well with the SQL databases. We can confirm that. Is there any plan to export a scene to 3D PDF? Would this be difficult to do? So we do have export to PDF options, but I'm not sure if it's scene itself is going to be in 3D PBF, we can look at this option. But yeah, there are some different capabilities for geospatial PDF that we export to, but not a full 3D PDF yet. That is an interesting request. We'll look into it. Question, is there any plans to improving indoor navigation? So indoor navigation, there's improvements that could be used using the hotkeys on the keyboard. So, things such as looking up or looking down, and as well as moving forward. So there are some improvements, and with the zoom to cursor as well, it does make it a little bit easier to utilize. And see, this is the indoor navigation, but just to give you an idea, I can look around, I can move forward, I can look up, and these are using the hotkeys. And you can also use it with this, move a little bit down or up. Okay, so that's the different options, or go down a floor. So that's along with the zoom to cursor, there are improvements there. But yeah, we could look at additional options. See, this is so you can use this and then move. It's basically like I'm driving around, looking up, and turn to the left, slow down, speed up. So this is using A and Z, or S and X in order to move up or down, and the arrows in order to change the view. So those are already some options that are there, and we can discuss it offline if there's any questions about how to use the indoor navigation in the best way. And it depends on whether it's in a BIM model or in a point cloud and some of the other options. So questions on BIM support. We support FBX and IFC right now, so those are already supported in terms of bringing in BIM models, and we have made some improvements into how they get added into the software. So FBX and IFC, which are Revit formats, are supported. If there's any other questions, feel free to email our support or email us directly, or to your point of contact. Another question came in. Can we change line pattern as our requirements, like a railway track? Well, yeah, there's different options for line patterns in the feature tools and how they get displayed. In terms of doing, let's say, best path analysis or something like that, that could be done using the software, and then you can apply a line based on the path or convert that line to a feature layer. In terms of how it gets displayed as a train track, like you saw, there's a lot of different new texture and animation options. So, I mean, those, you could display them as train tracks, you could display them as whatever you'd like it to be. So, yeah, thank you, everyone. Once again, apologies for the hiccup with the internet connection. If there's any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and we look forward to fielding any of your requests, ideas, applications with all the new Terra Explorer capabilities. So thank you, everybody.